Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, 10 books I've had for far too long and still haven't read. So I have on my lap a big stack of books that I've had for far too long. So these are all books that I bought before I started the channel. I'm like 99% sure of that. If you find a book haul video from the early days of the channel with one of these books in, do let me know in the comments. So yeah, I've had all of these books for far too long and I still haven't got to them. And that shows what a terrible person I am at in terms of buying more books that I can read. I definitely buy more books than I can read. Even having done 3, 4 now 100 book challenges where I read 100 books I already own without buying any new ones, I still have an absolute ton of books that I haven't read. So like thousands, basically thousands of books I haven't read. So yes, these are 10 that I bought before I started the channel that I still want to read. You know, all of these, looking at them, there are none here that I would part with. All of these I could definitely see myself reading if I could ever find the time to slot them in. So I thought I'd talk to you about these quickly today, and you can let me know if there are any you think I should be prioritising. So the first is actually 2 books. So this is Loop and Spiral by Koji Suzuki. I think these are books 2 and 3 in the Ring series. So I read the Ring like ages ago, years and years ago, and I think I bought all three of them at the same time from the same charity shop. The other thing I'm really bad at is taking stickers off the covers of second-hand books when I buy them. So yeah, I really like Ring, so I really should read these 2, but yeah, just haven't got to them. Ring is one of those unusual books where I saw the movie before reading the book, and I suspect that the book wasn't even translated into English until after the success of the movie. But I thought the movie was great and absolutely terrifying. In fact, it's one of those films I probably wouldn't watch again because I remember being so scared by it. Next up then, we have Our Kind of Traitor by John LeCarre, which is kind of a later book from LeCarre. There's a specific reason, or a vague excuse, maybe I should say, why I haven't read this. And that's because I kind of want to do a project where I read all of Le Carre's books in order. I haven't read that many books by him. I think I've got most of them, either physically or digitally. And I've really liked the ones I have read. So yeah, he's one of those authors who is such an important, influential author. I quite like the idea of reading his books in order. And I have read in order the first 2 George Smiley books. I'm not sure if those were the first 2 books he wrote though, so I do need to check that. But yeah, at some point I will get to this. This is not a Smiley book, I don't think. This is outside of that series. But yes, I will definitely read it one day because I like Le Carre. Next we have a book by an author I have a slightly strange relationship with, in that I find her books really difficult to get into, but really good when I finish them. And I say that having only actually read one of her books. So the author is Donna Tartt. So I absolutely loved her book The Secret History once I managed to actually read it. So I tried to read it 3 or 4 times and just couldn't get on with it at all, and then finally managed to, and I thought it was fantastic. So I'm like reasonably confident that the same thing will be true of The Goldfinch and her other book, The Little Friend, which I also have a copy of. I think I've got that one digitally. But I have tried to read both of those. I have started both of those and failed to get into them. So I clearly need to be in the right frame of mind to read Donna Tartt's books. Next, we have a book I know basically nothing about. I found this in a charity shop like years and years and years ago. I was wondering if I had if I still had the receipt in there so I could tell you exactly when I bought it, but I don't. But I think I've had this book for 15 years probably. It was published in the UK in 2007. So I can't have had it for 17 years, but I'm pretty sure I've had it for like 10 to 15 years. Anyway, the book is Noir by Olivier Pauvert, which is I think a kind of noirish thriller, as the title suggests. But the blurb sounds fantastic. A man wanders the streets of Paris, haunted by the memory of a young woman's bloodied corpse and tormented by the possibility that he was her murderer. So it's a great concept, but I've just never actually picked up this book and given it a try, so I need to. The other thing that's interesting about this book is, I don't know if you can tell, but it's a weird shape. It's like shorter than one of these books a book of the normal size nowadays, but it's the same width, so it's not like the size of an old school paperback. It's I don't know, it's a weird size, and I don't understand why it's that weird size, which also intrigues me. Next, another author who I really like, based on one book. So I've got, I think, 4 or 5 books by this author. I've read one book by him, which I thought was fantastic, but for some reason, despite buying other books by him, I've never actually tried to read any of them. So the author is John Alvide Lindqvist. The book I've read by him is Let the Right One In, which I thought was like a phenomenal vampire book. I think this is the first book other than that I bought by him, if that makes sense, and I think it was his second book as well. So yeah, I definitely need to give this a try at some point. I think it's about someone who works in a morgue, and the dead people start waking up. So it sounds like a good concept, but yeah, not read yet. The next book is a book I stole from my parents' bookshelves. I think it was a book someone had lent my mum, and she hadn't given it back, so she stole it from someone who said she should read it. I then stole it from her because I'd heard about it and heard good things about it. I think that theft took place, my theft of the book from her took place at least 10 years ago, and I still haven't read it. I'd be interested to know what people's thoughts are on this book in the comments. I think when I stole it from her, I was thinking it sounded like the kind of book I wanted to read. Nowadays, I'm not sure it does sound like the kind of book I want to read. It's one of those kind of modern literary fiction books that I think is a bit kind of meta and maybe a bit weird and maybe not my kind of thing anymore. Anyway, the book is A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius by Dave Eggers, which is in this edition's really nice because it's got that on one side, but like the old Ace science fiction doubles, you flip it over and there's another book on the other side, which I think is kind of like almost like an appendix to it, which has, like footnotes and thoughts and things like that. So yeah, if you've read this, let me know if you think I should read it. Next, there's a bit of a theme developing here. Next, we have another book by an author who I love based on one book. So the author is Michael Chabon. The book I've read by him is The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, which I thought was phenomenal. I thought it was a phenomenally good book. This is actually the first book I heard about by him. It's The Yiddish Policeman's Union, which I think is a kind of sci-fi crime novel, but with, kind of loads of other stuff layered on top. Based on the fact I loved Cavalier and Clay, I don't know why I haven't read this yet, especially as it's a crime novel, which is, the kind of thing I love. So I definitely need to give it a try. Okay, next we have a book by an author who I love, but at least I can say I've read multiple books by. This is one of his last books. So the author is Iain Banks and the book is Transition. So I bought this at Edinburgh Airport just after it came out. So it came out in 2009, so 15 years ago. The paperback edition was published in 2010. So I think I bought it in 2010, so 14 years ago. I used to work quite a lot in Scotland, so would pass through Edinburgh Airport regularly, and I saw this on the shelves. It's got a plane, I don't know if you can see that on the cover, and he's a Scottish author, so it felt appropriate to buy it. So I've talked about his book The Wasp Factory on the channel before, which is a book I read as a teenager and absolutely loved, and I subsequently read all of his books that were available at that time, which was like his first kind of 5 or 6 books, I think. And then I kind of stopped reading him around the time I went to university, which was when The Crow Road came out. I've subsequently read The Crow Road. I read it a couple of years ago, and I did like it. But yeah, he's an author that he got really, really popular and everyone was talking about him. And I think that turned me off him a little bit, which is a terrible thing to admit. But yeah, interestingly, This is a book that I believe in the States was published under his other name. So he also published science fiction under the name Iain M. Banks. This, because it's sci-fi, I think it's got nothing to do with his other sci-fi books, which are, I think, at least in some way connected, set in the same universe kind of thing. I think in the States it was published as an Iain M. Banks book rather than an Iain Banks book. But yeah, anyway, I definitely need to read this. I've enjoyed everything I've ever read by Iain Banks. And I do need to gradually work my way through the books by him that I haven't read. Sadly, a number that is not increasing because he died, I think, not that long after this book came out. Okay, next then a book by a giant of crime fiction. I'm not sure if I included this author in my 5 crime authors I want to read more of. I think I probably did. Anyway, the author is James Ellroy. I think, again, I've only read one book by James Ellroy, which was The Black Dahlia, which I read years ago and really liked. LA Confidential, probably his most famous book. I've had a copy of this for years. I should really give it a try. I did really like the movie of this. So this is, again, a book where I have seen the movie before reading the book. So yeah, I do need to read more Ellroy. I just find he's a bit depressing, isn't he, basically? He's a bit grim and depressing, which sometimes I'm in the mood for, but not always. So yeah, need to give that one a try at some point. And then finally, a book that I was sent when it was published by the publisher, and shockingly haven't read. So I've actually got in here the press sheet that they sent me. So they sent me this in 2018. And I still haven't read it. I have seen people talk about this book and say it was really good. You probably saw from that little press sheet I showed you, but it's Blood Cruise by Matt Strandberg, which I think is a Swedish book. It sounds great. So it's like a kind of haunted house on a cruise liner, which is a good concept. I love horror books where the location that the books take place in is contained. Characters can't escape for kind of environmental reasons. It also comes with a boarding pass, which is quite cute. So yeah, I need to give this a go at some point. As I say, everyone I know who's read this book has said it's really, really good. So definitely need to give it a try. Right, so those are 10, well actually 11 books, because I showed 2 Koji Suzuki books. 10 books I definitely need to read because I've had them for ages. Let me know in the comments which one of those 10, if you've read any of them, which one would you pick for me to read next? And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.